now, you probably don't need me to remind you that one of the trickiest questions for politicians and parents and teachers has been how to support kids and young people who are questioning their gender. On Thursday, after months, ministers told schools in England that they should make sure families are involved in a vast majority of cases if young people want to change their name or be called a different pronoun or wear clothes that match the gender they choose rather than the sex they were born in. Dr. Hilary Cass, who wrote the landmark review into medical treatment for those young people in 2024, after years of controversy around the Tavistock Clinic, told us the rules for schools are now in pretty much the right place. But she says that kids worried about their gender have been misled by social media and let down by adults. So how often does Dr. Cass think kids who haven't yet hit puberty should be allowed to choose a different gender or, to use the jargon, to socially transition?
Do you think kids were let down by all the shouting from the adults?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also caught up in all the issues about single-sex spaces and sports and safe areas for women, which were actually not to do with the children, but they were somehow part of a football within it. And so, you know, that's a real shame that children have been weaponised.
Weaponised?
Yeah, I think so. By some people, by people at the extremes. The vast number of people in the middle are silent, but it's the people at the extremes who really have, I think, caused quite a lot of distress for young people, you know, even as there's been, you know, rhetoric in the press. It's frightening for young people.
What do you mean by people at the extremes? Do you mean campaign groups or activists? Who do you mean?
So I think the people who have been activists on behalf of trans rights have actually, in some ways, been so strident that it's made it more difficult for trans people themselves who are just quietly trying to live under the radar. And equally, people who have taken a view that no one should ever transition have similarly made it difficult. I think what has kind of misled children is the belief that if you are not a typical girl, if you like, you know, playing with trucks or, you know, boys who like dressing up, that means, or that you have same-sex attraction, that means that you're trans. And actually, it's not like that. Those are all normal variations. And I think children were being, and young people were being, given a narrative that it's not OK to be anything but absolutely typical of the other girls on Instagram. It's
interesting you say misled there, and you mentioned Instagram and social media. Do you think then there's a generation that have been misled by social media?
I think they have had unrealistic images and expectations on social media, even, you know, a lack of realism about what transition would really mean and how hard it would be. Because for those young people who are going to grow up and never be comfortable in their body, a medical transition is the only way they're going to be able to live their life successfully and comfortably. But if that's not the path that you were intended to be on, it's a huge cost to go through, you know, quite intensive medical treatments and sometimes quite brutal surgeries, when actually if you'd taken more time, that might not have been your pathway.